Welcome to Stress Mess, a stressless podcast where the chaos is real, the caffeine is strong, and swearing sometimes happens, and that's okay. I'm Samantha Elizabeth, health and wellness coach, chronic overthinker, and proud BFFs to stress itself. Here we're ditching perfection, embracing unfiltered real talk, and making mindset shifts that might just keep us from screaming into the void. Let's get messy. On this episode of Stress Mess, I'm joined by my friend Jennifer Cortum. Jennifer spent 25 years in HR before making the leap to start her own coaching business after experiencing burnout. We talk about what burnout really looks like, why asking for help feels so hard, and how choosing collaboration over competition can make work and life a little less messy. Let's get to it. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. Jennifer, tell us a little about yourself before we get into the topic of today.
Sure. I'm Jennifer Cortum, and I am with Strong Foundation Coaching in HR. I am a leave experience strategist and practitioner, and I have about 25 years background in human resource management. I started out as actually a HR clerk, part-time, receptionist duties and everything included. And I ended my traditional HR career just about a year ago, and I worked my way up to being a director of HR. So I love human resource management, love what it stands for, and decided to kind of transition this last year.
Wow. Yeah. Well, tell us about that because 25 years, obviously going down one path in your life, that you're in corporate, you've got a regular 9 to 5, a schedule, all of that kind of stuff. Tell us about that because it's a huge leap to go, and leap from the path, no matter what path, if it's corporate or if you're, I was just talking to somebody about divorce, and, that sort of thing. So it's all of those, kind of things of the big leaps that you make in your life. Tell us about that because it's not always clean. It's very messy. So tell us about like what led, to, that and what has it been like for you so far?
Sure. So, what led up to leaving the last organization that I was with, and I had been with them about a year and a half,
Mhm.
I realized that culturally they had shifted in a direction that I just couldn't go.
Oh man.
I mean, emotionally, mentally, I wasn't there with them,
Yeah.
and it was a really tough spot for everyone to be in, and I was holding them back, and we all recognized that. And so during a conversation with my chief, I
Mm.
went ahead and just said, that it sounds like it's time for me to step away.
Yeah.
And so it happened very quickly and was, as you said, very messy, especially for me emotionally, because I didn't feel like I had the closure that I wanted.
Yeah.
And it was kind of ironic that just a few months after I had left that organization, I was at a SHRM luncheon for my local chapter here in Central California. And the speaker was about, or the topic that the speaker was presenting on was about burnout. And
Ooh.
I went, oh, yeah, I should probably go. Okay. And as her name is Dante Roche, she is an amazing, amazing coach. And she started talking about the symptoms of burnout. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Check, check, check,
Oh.
check. What? No, no. Oh man. Yep. Check, check, check. And I was like, this is wild.
So
And I had
tell
no
us
idea.
tell us some of those that you checked off.
Um, God, there were so many of them. Um, but some of them were more about, like, being in the workplace, and at that point, I wasn't.
Okay.
So, but some of them were like, you're so connected to your email and to, checking your phone. There's no break. You literally get no break from work. And
Yeah.
that's what had been happening with me. And that when I was working actively in corporate America, I was available 24/7.
Mm.
And again, I had no break. I would go on vacation. I would still be checking everything.
Yep.
There's that disconnect never occurred. I would wake up in the middle of the night and I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep because I'd be worried about something at work that maybe I wasn't quite sure how to do, or, and those are some of the things that she had talked about. But what really just started creating that sensation of, "Oh my gosh, I gotta deal with this," is and Dante never came right out and said this, this was my
Mm.
interpretation of it,
Mhm.
but it was like my nervous system was always on high alert,
Oh, yep.
and that I never got out of that mindset.
Yeah.
And without having any relaxation, that high alert creates other issues.
Yeah.
And one of those issues for me is I have psoriasis. You can see on my face it's very red.
Mm.
And so the psoriasis was getting worse rather than better. And again, I had to make some choices because if my nervous system was on this high alert and my body and my brain never shut down and relaxed, my psoriasis was going to get worse and worse and worse, and it did. I have mild psoriatic arthritis, and it got to the point of where one of my hands, I could hardly move it for about the first 2 hours of every morning.
Oh, that's bad.
And yeah, so those are the types of things that, again, Dante didn't come out specifically and say, Jennifer, you're going to experience. But a lot of the things that she talked about were physical symptoms rather than just the tasks that we do.
Mm.
And so those physical part of it is, maybe you have a illness that just never seems to go away. And I
Yeah.
think that was kind of, I won't say verbatim, but that was one of the things that she had brought up was a possibility. You
Yeah.
get sick more often, you don't feel good, you're always exhausted, and again, you just never turn off.
Yeah. I definitely experienced that too. And, at one point I had an anxiety attack at work. And this is just that, kind of thing that you never switch off. You go on vacation, you always have your phone on you. I would travel with my laptop, to go on vacation just in case something popped up that I needed to bring get on my laptop and do something. And, I was in that type of culture that you were never off, even 24/7. If your manager called you at 2:30 a.m., and said, I need you to get online, absolutely pop up. You got your laptop right there, it's sleeping beside you, as a comfort blanket, basically. And,
Mhm.
you just get on it, and you just get what needs to be done. And maybe you get a few more minutes of sleep or something like that. And then you have to get up for work the day, and that was, I understand that. And I went through something and I didn't see it actually coming. But it was, I don't think anybody sees an anxiety attack coming, and nobody goes, oh, I think I'm going to have an anxiety attack today. But that's what it was like. It was just, busy morning. We had a party at work, that I was hosting, and I needed to be on, but I needed to get a presentation done because right after the party, I was going to have to present. And of course, slides are, I mean, people know that work in corporate, you gotta have slides and they have to be pretty and, all this kind of stuff. So I'm making my slides, really pretty. And all of a sudden my PowerPoint crashes. The file gets corrupt and there's no way to recover it. And then this is before things were on the cloud. And so it wasn't recoverable whatsoever because it was right on my computer. And so I'm sitting there, with a corrupt PowerPoint, and I'm thinking, is there any way IT can recover this? Because I got to host this party here in like 30 minutes, and IT is like a half a, mile away. So I'm large campus, And so I'm running, like literally running to IT because I got to get this presentation done because I got to host this, event. And then I've got to go and actually deliver this presentation. And I got to look awesome doing it too. And look polished and know what I'm talking about and all this kind of stuff. So I like run to IT and they say, hey, there's nothing we can do, and oh, by the way, your computer is dying, and I'm like, I mean, not like dying, but like, low battery. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, because it doesn't hold battery very much. So I was like, oh shoot. So I'm like, they kind of plug me in, and my computer doesn't turn on. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're like, oh wait, we've got the wrong cord. I guess I had a really old computer compared to them. So I had to go and run back to my desk and get the cord. Like meanwhile, I'm like, I've got to be back in like, 10 minutes to host this party. So I'm just running back and forth. And I get back there and they tell me, I'm sorry, there isn't anything that we can do. And I'm thinking, I've got to host this party and then I've got to make, and I kid you not, it was 96 slides, 96 slides that I had to present because I was presenting for 2 hours. So I had to present all the data and all that kind of stuff. And so I get back to my desk and I'm panicking. I mean, first of all, my computer is low. And, I'm like, oh, shoot, I left my cord back at IT.
Oh.
So, third time running back to IT, get back to my desk, turn on my computer. I've got like 2 minutes until the party. Everybody's just like, hey, are we going to start this party? And I was like, oh, I'm like, hold on. And then I turned to my friend, my dear friend, Shannon. Absolutely love her. She's one of my dearest friends. We were coworkers. And I turned to her and I said, can you please host this? Because while the party's going, I have to create 96 slides. I have to remember what I did with these slides. I have to go pull the charts. I mean, I have to do all the things. And she's like, absolutely. So I'm sitting there trying to recreate the 96 slides. Now, mind you, the event is only an hour and a half long. So I have an hour and a half to do 96 slides. And I'm like just SharePoint this, Excel, all of this kind of stuff. And I'm plugging and I'm going and, putting everything in there. And about an hour into it, I have 30 minutes and I'm at like slide 10, and I'm like, it's one of those moments that you think, can I do it? Can I create, 86 more slides? And I realized I can't do it. I am going to fail. I'm going to get fired for not present. It was a big presentation. I'm like, I'm going to fail. And so I just started crying at my desk, which is uncalled for. Don't bring those kind of emotions into the office. And I have a absolute complete meltdown at work. And I email my boss, he's at the event, and I messaged my boss and I'm like, I can't. And this was a presentation for him and his boss and, the person that's the CEO of HP now. But, Enrique, I think Enrique is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I mean, it does matter, obviously, because he worked really hard to get that position. But anyway, yeah, I had a meltdown. I emailed him and I said, I just said shortly, that my computer died. IT can't recover. Just like, and inside, actually, I was dying. Like that's what it felt like. I was dying. And I just couldn't stop crying. And I cried all the way home. And I got home and I just laid in bed and cried and cried and cried. And I just couldn't stop crying, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? So I think that for some people, that's what it looks like. And it could look like other things.
Yeah, and actually that was one of the things that Dante Rasha talked about is, emotional regulation, that it's very
Yeah.
difficult to regulate the emotion because everything is, um I I was thinking out of proportion. I'm not sure that's a really good way of phrasing it,
Okay.
but it's that things that are super important kind of feel like everything is super important. Even the little stuff that maybe, um, 6 or 12 months ago, you would have been like, "Yeah, okay, I can handle this." Now it's like I can't handle anything because everything is so critical. And
Yeah.
there's your brain is kind of out of balance. Your emotions are out of balance.
Right.
And that's that burnout coming to the forefront, and you're not able to think clearly.
Yeah.
You don't know what those next steps are. And I know that's part of what was happening to me as well, is that um there were things that I knew how to do it. I knew it.
Yeah.
But I would sit there and look at my computer like, uh, well,
Yeah.
where do I start? What do I
Yeah.
do? These are things that I've been doing for years.
Everything feels like a mountain all of a sudden.
Yes, that's a great way to phrase it. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, because I know that, like, they say, like, oh, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. And then, like, yeah, things might be a molehill, but it's definitely a mountain. And you're in the mountain range and you're trying to climb every single mountain. And it's exhausting.
right. And the key things that are happening, I mean, like, when you talked about, like, your laptop that had a problem, and all of these things, those are huge issues. I mean, they're not small things, and it doesn't matter whether you're burnt out or not.
Yeah.
Those things are going to be critical and messy and icky and everything. But when you add burnout to that mess, it definitely looks very different,
Yeah.
and it's awful. And I, I I had a number of things that were going on in about 3 weeks prior to my leaving the last organization that I was with,
Mm.
and, everything felt similar to that situation you described with your computer, and it wasn't that it actually was happening, it was that that's what it felt like,
Yeah.
is panic and, yeah, the anxiety, and I had never had anxiety before in my life.
Yeah. Same. That was my
Yeah,
first panic attack
yeah,
that I've ever had, and it's confusing, for a lot of people.
yeah.
I'm usually pretty easygoing, usually pretty level-headed, but that was the time that it all kind of came crashing down, and I really hope that nobody experiences that, but it happens.
It does, and it seems like it's happening more and more frequently, and to slightly adjust, my perspective to today, this is one of the major reasons why I chose to go out on my own, and
Yeah.
why I chose leave experience as a topic to really focus on, because when people need to take a leave of absence because of stuff like this that happens, I mean, you
Mhm.
need to take care of yourself, and corporate world is not designed to help messy emotions.
Yeah.
You said yourself that, crying at your desk, no, that's just not gonna happen. Okay, it
Right.
does happen a lot.
Yep.
But why? Why not? Why is it not acceptable? And those are some of the things that I think from a corporate standpoint we need to look at, and we need to
Mhm.
think about, and we need to support each other in the workplace.
Yep.
And I don't care whether what gender you are or identify with. It's about the individual person and what you can handle at that moment in time.
Yes.
And, there's stigma on gender of, you're not supposed to show emotion. I was just talking to a group of friends this weekend about that, there's a stigma on,
Mhm.
especially men, that you're not
Yeah.
supposed to show strong emotion unless it's basically like aggression or anger. And it's like, what?
Mhm. Yeah.
Why? Where did this come from? And so I think that, like, again, my friends and I, we were all talking about this, that, we really need to think about how we can better support each other, regardless of gender, identity, place, whatever it is. I mean, if it's a person walking down the street, you can be as supportive as possible,
Yeah.
just like if it's a person that you've known for, 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that also, I mean, like you bring up, kindness to strangers, but Also start with yourself and your family, you know.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I've definitely grown up with some family members that are kind to strangers, but when it comes to their own family, it's like, you know, like it's kind of an odd thing, you know, but then I also like have had the opposite effect. And I have, you know, an ex-husband and he was only kind to family, but everybody else was, you know, to him. Like, you know,
yeah,
he had an inner circle. And if you weren't part of the inner circle, then, you know, you weren't anything, you know, and wouldn't treat you very nicely, you know. So before I
yeah,
was in his circle, you know, it was kind of like, man, he's a jerk. Love
yeah,
him,
and
but
well, and it's true though. I mean, there's so many different perspectives, and I think
mm,
everyone is just slightly different from the next person. You know, even if you grew up in the same household, you know, I
yeah,
mean, my older sister is very loving, very caring, but she shows it in a totally different way than I do.
yeah. Is that do you think that's like love language, you know, like preferred love language and, you know, how people show love? I mean, because my kiddo is such a great gift giver. Like, oh my gosh, gives the best gifts and thinks it through and, you know, really goes out, you know, of his way to like give a great gift. It's pretty amazing. I'm not a very good gift giver, but I certainly am like a time giver, you know, and you know, I don't know why. I mean, lately I've been understanding because it's kind of like that whole golden rule versus the platinum rule, you know, don't
Mhm.
you know, not treat others as you want to be treated, but you know, as they want to be treated. And so that's
Right.
where true gift giving actually comes from, or rather good gift giving comes from
Yeah.
treating them as they wanna be treated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know over the past year, it's really changed like the relationship that I have with my husband
Mm.
because I was thinking of him like I would do something for me.
Yeah.
I would want something. And now I'm trying to be much more aware of
Mhm.
what his perspective is and what his love language is and helping him and understanding him. Do I succeed? Some days are better than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so true. And his love language is that he does things. He
Okay.
will,
Acts
take
of
care
service.
of, yeah.
Yeah.
And, my love language is more I would rather, cook him a good meal and give him a big hug, or
That's
sit down and
physical
just,
touch and tangible
yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah. I don't necessarily like to go out in the yard and work. I know he doesn't like to go out in the yard and work, but he does it anyway, or he takes care of the
Yeah.
cars, or, whatever it is. But he takes care of people in a very different way. And um, it's so amazing to see the change
Mm.
in the relationship now that I'm not so consumed with things outside the home.
Yeah. That totally makes sense, you know, now I mean, because there's that and we were talking about it, if you're not in the inner circle and everything, you're you know, but, you know, there's some people that are like, "If you're in my inner circle, I don't care about you as much as I care about that stranger," you know? And, that is very different, you know, because now that you're not out in corporate world, you know, and you're not trying to please an employer, now you've got to do it for yourself. And yeah, you have clients, so you could have multiple bosses or multiple managers, if you will. But now you've got this difference of appreciation, I suppose, for yourself, right?
I do, and I think I actually have a better appreciation for my husband. He is a CEO and president of a small credit union. They've got about 2 dozen employees
Mm,
and 3 branches, and he does it all. I mean, he is, we have this running joke of, chief, cook and bottle washer, but, he literally can do it all, although he doesn't, and he purposely chooses not to be a teller.
mm,
Could he step in and do it? Probably he could figure it out. That's just the kind of person he is. But does he do it? And that's where one of the things that for me it was like, okay, he's making a conscious choice on what type of service he's giving to others, what he's doing for others.
Yes.
I need to stop and take a look at that because that was part of my burnout because I wanted to be good at everything.
Yeah. But technically with your own business, you kind of have to, in the initial start of it, be somewhat laying a good foundation.
Absolutely. It doesn't mean you have to be great or even good at everything. It means that, like in my case, because my husband is this amazing individual who, he's a certified chief executive. He's got an MBA, actually an MSBA,
Oh, what is
so
an
Masters of
MSBA?
Science. Yeah, Masters of Science in
Oh,
Business
Master's of Science.
Administration.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit more in depth on how to do things in business, and so
Mhm.
it's wonderful because I can go to him and say, "Okay, I'm really struggling with this. I don't understand how this works. I don't know what to do," or, "Can you help me understand why marketing is blah, blah, blah," or, "How have you had experience in this?" And we'll just talk about it.
Mhm.
And so that's where I don't necessarily have to be good at it.
Yeah.
I just have to be good enough to know where to go to get information to put it together. And
True.
for me, that has been a huge, huge relief.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if you've known other people that have kind of gone in the same path, and you can find people, that have either trailblazed or they're trying to figure it out too. So there's a little bit of camaraderie there, with them. But yeah, you basically find a group of people, and this is, a little bit of what I do, I'm social media, so I've got this wonderful group of the social media breakfast that I'm a part of. And, I have, other networking groups of small business owners, that are doing, you find people that either have been there before or they're going through it too. And you can compare notes. I mean, because they're approaching it from one angle, you're approaching it from the next, but you're both approaching it at the same time. And so you can kind of piece things together and help each other out. I mean, I think that's just the way the world should be. I'm sorry. I'm just a kumbaya kind of person, I suppose.
I, you know, I, I am meeting more and more people who feel very similar to that.
Hmm.
And it's exciting because I remember, 15 years ago when I was a sole proprietor and I was a consultant for HR. And man, it was dog eat dog. I mean,
Oh
and
boy.
it still can be, but um I think it's also making choices of who is in your circle. If you
Yep.
want that dog eat dog world, you can find it.
Oh
That
yeah.
was all I knew at that time, and that was not for me. That was why I was not wildly successful the way I wanted to be
Sure.
because I don't have that mindset.
Yep. I think that, and maybe that's the reason why some people do move from corporate, because I'm the same way too. I mean, there was some backstabbing, there's, throwing people under the bus, in corporate, quite a bit. And it's not to say all corporations or all organizations are like that, but there is, quite a bit of competition, because the thing is that there are performance reviews, and some companies call it calibration, where a certain percentage has to fall below the line. And that's part of it, like, you don't want to fall below the line, because if you do, then you're probably going to put on a performance improvement plan, a pip, and then you're probably going to be let go. And like, it's always competitive, and it's not necessarily, I mean, is that the bell curve like in school,
Yeah,
where they, yeah,
effectively, yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like, there's certain people that are just below the line, even
right.
though you might, get a passing grade, it's still at the lowest percentage or something. And so it's
Yeah.
those kind of things that, and creating competition. I mean, some competition is healthy, right? I mean, for fun. I don't like.
Y Yeah, and, for me, competition is about the people that are involved in it.
Yeah.
rather than the competition itself. So it may not be healthy for everyone
Yeah.
because, somebody may not be able to handle or deal well with competition.
Yeah.
I compete with myself.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. I do the same thing too because every single month I do a know my number session and with myself, and I look at my social media numbers. I look at, excuse me, kombucha. Excuse me. I'm not going to leave that in the podcast. Um,
Oh, that's good.
it's kombucha. Oh no. Oh
Oh,
jeez.
man.
Anyway, what was I even talking about? Not kombucha. Actually, by the way, no.
Uh,
um, oh yeah, I do know.
the competition.
Yeah, I do a competition with myself, where I look at my numbers and, I mean, sometimes I'll go, "Oh, that's a little down this month," comparatively to last month. But most numbers are in the up and up, and I'm not talking about just social media numbers, but also like, revenue and expenses. Can I keep my expenses lower? And all of these kind of things. And I do see like, sometimes it's up and down, it's not always going to be. And like when you work for corporate, I'm going to say this, there's a point like at the beginning of the year when you do your goals, and then like quarter by quarter you break it down into, I'm getting to this number, or I'm getting to that, and there seems to be progress, towards that. Not always, it depends on if you're dependent on other people, to be able to help you achieve your goals. But there's always that kind of competition that you can have with yourself, is to say, I want to be better, or sometimes just go, like I don't look at
Yeah.
my social media numbers and go, oh my gosh, like I don't have many followers. I don't, not that I don't care. I love you all. But but it's like I don't look at that and kind of get boohoo about it or anything like that. I just go, yeah, it's a number, I mean, it's
Right.
it's not good or bad, to me.
Right. And I think that is something that's so important, is that when you're talking about, whether um competition is healthy, it depends on our perspective. And for me, uh, part of my burnout overall, and I realized it had been happening over about a 3 to 4 year period, was that I kept getting put in positions where I had to compete with other people in HR.
Mhm.
And that's not who I am. That is not who I am. I'm super collaborative. I want to help everybody around me.
Yeah.
And so, it was an unhealthy environment because of that. And so I kept upping the expectation of what
Yes.
I needed to compete with myself on. And
Yep.
there comes a point when you can't increase it anymore.
Yeah, like there's a limit, that you have, in yourself. But then also like if it is, once going back to collaborative effort, you're relying on other people. And it was one of those things too that I often saw. Now, when I was a chief of staff, that was a little different because I was able to look across the entire department. And, some people had either competing priorities, or that there's a priority, let's just say in operations, and IT did not have that on their list and they needed to work together on that. So the problem is the operations going to be like, hey, IT, can we work on this? And they're going to be like, no, we got other priorities going on. So syncing up people's priorities to say, like, you guys share the responsibility of the performance of this particular goal, that's super important. But when people have all of these competing priorities, of course it's going to create competition, because who's going to get the resources for that? Who's going to get the travel dollars? Who's going to get all of that? It's constant, like, dog eat dog.
Yeah, and it's just kind of interesting when you just said, like, share responsibility, and it made me stop and think about, okay, in the workplace, but also at home,
Hmm.
somebody typically has to be the lead on it, whether it's like siblings who, it's their responsibility to take out the trash or to load the dishwasher, or, whatever it might be, walk the dog, whatever.
Yeah.
And but if somebody doesn't take responsibility and say, "Okay, it's your turn, it's my turn, it's your turn, it's my turn,"
Yep.
it doesn't get done, or two people are trying to do the same thing at the same time
Mhm.
and nothing really works. So there has to
Right.
be some coordination, collaboration on all of that. And yeah, it can get super, super stressful, super messy without
Yes.
that coordination.
Right, exactly. And oh my gosh, I'm going to say this again. And I'm sure people are sick of me saying this, but West Side Story. I mean, I think that a lot of people look at that because obviously that's based on Romeo and Juliet. I think a lot of people look at the Capulets versus the Montagues, as a silly fight. Like why are these families fighting? They're in the same territory. They're trying to all achieve the same mission. It's the same thing, with corporations, and the whole Sharks versus the Jets, which is West Side Story. The Sharks versus the Jets. They're in the same city, it's the same thing. Like, we're in the same company. Why is there competition within our company? Now, I understand like sales, for instance. There's some competition in there, like who's the best salesperson of the quarter, all of that kind of stuff. They create competition on purpose. But when we're talking about like trying to implement a career development program in HR, which is going to benefit a lot of people. And somebody's going to step up and go, you know what? I've got other goals. My goal is that I need to implement a data system for HR. And it's like, so, and you're like, so your goal is going to trump my goal. I'm like, both very important. Data is very important. Career development is very important too. And so when you have those kind of competitions, with people, or like, who achieves their goals first, all that, we're all working towards the same goal. And, for an actuality, for an organization, we're all there for the customers, but we're all there for each other too. I know we're getting into corporate talk again, but
Well, and to me it should be, but if we go back to, just in our world, whether it would be work, home, out in the on the street, whatever, it doesn't make any difference. It still comes back to working together somehow,
yeah,
rather than working in a vacuum, a silo, narrow field of
right.
vision,
Yep.
however you want to phrase that, that I think building an awareness of what's around us and how we can help each other.
Yep.
I know it's been a couple of years ago, but I remember, and I live in a very small town. So to me, going into a very large city is sometimes startling
Sure.
in feel. So I was actually up in the Bay Area, and this person was walking across the street, and there was an older man. He was walking with a cane, and the person that was walking quickly across the street actually hit his elbow that was
Oh,
holding the cane.
yeah.
So I saw this, I ran over, I picked up the cane, and the older man just turned and looked at me and like, I could have done that, and walked off. And I mean, I'm like standing in the middle of the road. And fortunately, my friends came by and grabbed my elbows and got me across the street. But I was so shocked at this older man's, grumpiness of somebody trying
Yeah.
to be helpful and be
Yeah.
collaborative. And by
Yeah.
the time I got across the street, he turned around and he had tears in his eyes and he says, "I'm so sorry. I was embarrassed."
Okay. No, I mean, I know that, they say, when somebody has a disability and, unless they ask, don't do it for them. I mean, because, obviously they want to be capable, they want to be able to, and so like the thing is I know that's kind of like the rule, there is that um you don't do anything, or maybe ask, politely or something like that, instead. I did feel kind of bad because I have older neighbors, and one of them was hauling out their recycling in the morning or something. Or no, the recycling didn't pick up that day for some reason. and they had to haul the can back up their driveway, which we had to have like sloped driveways, and I could hear him saying, "Man, this is heavy," and I'm thinking, well, he's like 90 something, and I'm thinking, should I run over and help him? I'm like, I was paralyzed a little bit in that moment, thinking, should I run over and help him? Is he saying, "Boy, this is heavy," because he wants help and he doesn't want to ask for it? It was like one of those things that I was like, I don't know what to do. And so, or like, is he just wanting to say, like, look at me, I'm strong, I'm carrying up this, you know, it, it, anyway, it's those kind of things that I feel, I don't know why it kind of lives rent free in my head sometimes when I think about them. I think I should have asked, "Hey, do you want me to take your can for you?" But I also didn't want to make him feel, I didn't want to emasculate, something like that.
In
Anyway, basically make him
emasculate,
feel
yeah.
less than a man.
Yeah,
I didn't want him,
yeah.
I didn't want to do that, regardless, of anybody's age or anything like that. Let me haul that can for you,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think that's what was happening, and that's what actually came out for me is that, and the gentleman actually, I got a hug out of it, and we walked a little ways down the street. He was so nice, and we just chatted while we were going out to my friends and I were just going out to get a meal, and so he
Mhm.
walked with us to that far, and he was just right around the corner. So, but he said, people just don't help him.
Oh,
He just he and he felt invisible.
yeah.
And so, the I don't know, 5 or 6 people that I was with, we all got hugs. We all gave hugs, multiple times and,
Yeah.
said, "You're not invisible. You're a very special person." And, but what it came about is or what actually came out of that conversation was that as a group, yes, we're all HR professionals, but we
Mhm.
realized that, wow, this is frightening because if that older gentleman felt invisible, what what do we do about it? How do we handle
Yeah.
this? How do
Yeah.
we work with that, all these things? And this was actually pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I know COVID had really changed a lot of things, but
Mhm.
it helped us really stop and think about where our society is going and what we can do to impact it and help each other.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, yeah, I think you're right. It's going out and asking, can I pick that cane up for you rather than just doing it for somebody?
Sure.
Um, I mean, I could visibly see the gentleman was struggling. He was having a hard time. Something was up with his hips. And so bending over, I think, would have probably meant he fell over in the middle of a street, a very busy street.
Yeah.
And so that was my thought process. And I think he would have been fine either way, but that he had gotten so used to being invisible
Oh.
and to not having help of any kind. And he said he lived alone. I have no idea how old he was. I don't even remember his name at this point, but, the impression that he gave, the impression that I keep of him in my heart,
Mm.
just this is such a important piece that I think we can all do is help each other rather than being competitive, rather than
Mm.
going, should I not? Should I not? Taking basic civil action
Yeah.
of helping ourselves and others,
Mhm.
it can reduce our stress. And I
Yep.
remember that, yeah, I was really emotional. I think, the whole group of us was. But we felt so good after that. I mean, this is a group of, I mean, several of them were, high vice presidents of HR. And we
Yeah.
were all laughing, teasing. We were actually skipping back to the hotel with each other. That
Oh,
was what it gave us, that kind of a good feeling
yeah.
of, "Wow, let's do this together.
Yeah.
Let's make a difference."
I love that so much. I mean, because not only do you feel good, but hopefully you made that guy's day too, that he didn't feel so invisible. And it spreads more and more, because then you're going to be more apt to want to do more And, maybe he passed it on as well too. I mean, that's why that movie Pay It Forward is such a great movie.
Yes.
Because it it could snowball into something really big for somebody, even if it seems small to you.
Right, and yet I think our society, creates a mindset where we need to be cautious.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Okay, why?" I wanna challenge that. Why do we need to be cautious? Is it because it's unsafe? And if so, how is it unsafe? And I think, again, thinking about all of those things, if we can help others and be collaborative and supportive rather
Mhm.
than competitive, or, because I mean, thinking about like you're talking about your neighbors, with their trash can, um, that's stressful.
Yeah. It is. I think it's also like,
Yeah.
as you get older, you're not as able, to do things too. I mean, sometimes you just wish that the kindness of others, like that guy, in the cane, he felt invisible. I mean, it kind of made him hard, and
It
hard
did.
to kindly accept, help from others.
Right, and I'm sure, very proud person, that's great, fine, no problem.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that as individuals, if we can find a way to connect with each other in such a way that it's okay to say, "Hey, do you need help?" And being able to say, honestly, "Yeah, I need help."
Yeah.
Accept it and open that. And that's partially where that safety aspect may come in, is
Sure.
that it may not be safe to say, "Yeah, I need help."
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, because that's how it was in corporate. You don't ask for help, because the thing is that if you ask for help, you're being seen as weak, at
Right,
that time, like you're not capable.
right.
Like, oh, you need help on this, one thing. And I really had a hard time asking for help. And I do remember one time I was trying to put together a report and I didn't know Excel as well as I do today. And, I was trying to put together a report. I was trying to do percentages and VLOOKUP. Well, I already knew VLOOKUP at that, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But I was trying to do all sorts of like calculations and stuff like that on Excel with this like large data set and multiple sheets and stuff like that. Anyway, it doesn't. I keep going into weeds, but anyway, rabbit hole. But that was, something that I didn't want to ask for help because I was going to be seen of like, oh, I'm not capable. And if I'm not capable of that, what else am I not capable of doing? I mean, like that's how it was snowballing in my head. And so I remember staying up until like 3 a.m., trying to get this report done and I got it done. That was around the time of, hey, can you imagine? It was around the time that I had the panic attack at work, because I couldn't
Yeah,
even ask for a, hey, that's kind of related, but
yeah.
that's that's how it
Yeah.
happens though. I mean, that you don't want to ask for help too. And
Mm.
I have become better at asking for it. I don't feel like I think like you have a fear of asking for help when you feel like you're in competition because then you're going to be seen as weak comparatively to the other person. But now I don't fear that. Now I do challenge myself every once in a while to learn something new or, whatever it is. But, it's not because I feel like I'm in competition, like I need to figure this out. So therefore, I like that person, I get ahead of that. I don't think about that anymore. I just think about it as like, I got to challenge myself, because that's, something that helps us to keep growing, is kind of stretching ourselves a little bit, stretch goals, of they say in corporate, right? But
Mm.
it's that sort of thing that you want to do that, but now I don't have the fear of like asking somebody even what I would consider or in corporate they call it a stupid question, but like I don't have a fear of that anymore. Do you fear that? Like asking people for help? I mean, now that you're out of corporate, because did you fear that in corporate and what about
Oh,
now?
yeah. Yeah, in corporate, it was almost like a death knell, whether you asked or didn't ask, depending on the situation and the person. So you
Yeah.
had to know which way to go. Um, I think the last few months, it's really started to subside. So,
Mm,
since I actually opened my business,
yeah.
I've had so many people come up to me and go, "Good for you." I'm so excited. And they've just been very open and very warm
Mm,
about this whole concept. And so it's placed, I think, a different emphasis on asking for help
yep.
and being open, sharing more about
Hmm.
what I've gone through.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're in corporate, you don't share because that's like a death knell in many
Yeah.
places.
Right.
Everything has to be so insular. But
Sure.
yeah, that fear has really dissipated, and part of it is, again, working with my husband, and being more open about where I'm struggling,
Hmm.
and he talks about, "Well, I think everybody struggles with that one," or,
Yeah, but
and
you
it's
don't
like,
know
"What?"
unless you talk about it. Yeah, like you
Exactly.
don't know unless you say it out and everybody's just like, "Oh yeah," and you're like, "Oh, you too?" Like, I thought I was the only one. Although, I mean, sometimes it can go the opposite way too, where you bring something up and everybody's just like, "Weirdo," just like,
Well, I'm used
um,
to that one, but
yeah, I
yeah.
know. I'm over
Yeah.
it, but.
Yeah. That's what happens when you're in human
Everybody
resources.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's so much easier, I think, when you start having those conversations because it gets easier
Yes.
and easier and easier.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that. Wow. Well, thank you so much for all of your words of wisdom, but then also like sharing about, your journey too. I mean, that's just super important. And I know a lot of people are going to identify, with that. And hopefully nobody is going towards burnout, or if they recognize that they're there, they don't know that they're, hopefully, that they are able to take this wisdom that you've brought to us. And thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And I appreciate talking to you always.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and, I wish everyone the absolute best in working on their burnout, uh, process because it takes a lot to get out of it, and
Yeah,
it's not something you can easily do on your own. In fact, most people cannot deal with the issues that come about on their own.
definitely. So, everybody ask for help. Don't be afraid to do that. And let's make that a norm in corporate, that
Oh,
asking for help is not a weakness, it is a strength, right?
absolutely.
All right. Well, good. Where can people find you on the web? Can people find you on the web yet? I mean, you're so new. But
Yeah, so I do have my website up. It is, strongfoundationcoaching.com, and if you ever wanna look me up on LinkedIn, I am Jen Cortum on LinkedIn, so it's Jen and my last name of Cortum. So, you can find me all different types of ways, and even if you just Google Jennifer Cortum, you will find me because 'cause we're one of the few Cortums out there.
all right, wonderful. I'll put this in the show notes as well too, so people can just click on a link and get right to you.
Sounds
Awesome.
great.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the podcast, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
I hope so.